Let's get right to the top story. It was the worst kept secret in all of sports that JJ Redick was one of the top choices for the Lakers to fill their head coaching vacancy. And now it is done officially. JJ Redick is the head coach of the LA Lakers. His last 5 years have been wild, though. And we were just talking about how different it is. Really, just the I would say just the respect that you overall get as a coach, as a head coach in the NBA. And we were talking about how they are like the Rodney Dangerfield of pro coaches, because no matter how much money you make as a coach, we just saw that from Monty Williams, no matter if you won a championship, no matter how many wins you have, you never really have job security as a head coach in the NBA unless like you're super, like in addition to you being a made man, let's say you won a championship, Steve Kerr, pop stuff type stuff, and or you're a superstars plural, that they love you and they still vouch for you. They still have your back. As soon as your superstar turns against you, oftentimes it doesn't even matter if you won a lot of games or a championship, you still could be gone. And we've seen that even with the Lakers and LeBron a little bit. The last 5 years for JJ Redick, played with the Pelicans. He launched his own media company. He signed with the Mavs. He launched a podcast, signed with ESPN, moved to ESPN from the number 2 broadcast team to the number 1 broadcast team, and launched a podcast with LeBron. And now Lakers head coach. That is a hell of a 5-year plan if you can get it, Patrick. But for JJ Redick, who probably has one of the thinnest resumes, and you brought up some of the other examples of NBA head coaches who didn't have a ton of head coaching experience, if any at all, and the results have been mixed. What are your thoughts about JJ Redick? What's he going to bring to the table as his strength as a head coach? What made him stand out for the obviously the GM and Pelinka and the ownership of the Lakers, and why they choose him other than the relationship with LeBron? What makes JJ Redick special? You're an NBA guy.
So it's not just a relationship with LeBron. I think it's a relationship with a lot of players in the NBA. He's had a lot of guys on his podcast, and he's talked with a lot of these guys. He's either played with them or had them on the podcast. He's interviewed them for doing ESPN, ABC stuff. So I think he has a good relationship with a lot of players in the league. So I think that helps in. I think the fact that he is very up on the product between doing the shows, that he's got an ability to self-scout the Lakers as well as scout other teams around the league. He knows what they do well. He's already scouted a lot of these teams. He knows what a lot of the players can do, can help out in scouting for games, can help out in scouting for free agency. So you add that in there. He also has shown a great work ethic, which is what you need to be a head coach. A lot of guys, when they retire, start to take time off. He has not. He has stayed working very consistently and doing the podcast and doing the broadcasting and constantly working, constantly studying game film, constantly pulling out new takes and new looks at X's and O's and breaking down film. Those are types of things you want to make sure that a guy who's coming in the work's not too much for him. That, they retired 4 years ago and they're enjoying their home life. He is not. He's been on the road. He's been doing things. So you enjoy seeing that as well. And you believe that he's somebody that, when you've watched him, breaks down X's and O's in a way that's really what you were kind of looking for in the next coach. You have LeBron, so being the motivator is not necessarily going to be your biggest thing. You're going to be working with a lot of the other guys, but you need to put them in a position to win. You need to be able to find ways to scheme guys open so that when LeBron drives, you're working with shooters to try and get shooters open to hit threes where LeBron and AD can create, and then they throw the ball back out for shooters. And what was JJ Redick? That's what he did. That was JJ Redick's job, was to be the guy on the outside that when a star was doing something inside, could kick the ball back out. Or if Chris Paul had the ball, he could find him when he drove. And that's what you want to see. JJ Redick personally had experience doing that. He understands the inner workings of how to try and get yourself open. And that's kind of what they want from a lot of these players on this team. Is, man, just get open and hit threes. And that's what JJ Redick did. So if you're saying who can coach the rest of this team up around LeBron and AD, that's great. And then you can give him the faith to try and get him inside, get him some assistant coaches with some experience. And then when you go into the post-LeBron era, and the post-AD, maybe post-AD, but post-LeBron era, depending on who you bring in this offseason. I know they want to bring in a star. There's talk of Jimmy Butler. There's talk of Donovan Mitchell. I'm sure there's other names out there that people they want to try and bring in via trade. If you move into that next era, can he be part of that? And you kind of get year or two running start as a head coach before you work into that era, learn a little bit more of what the game takes. And then when LeBron leaves, you feel more confident going into that. It's only a 4-year deal. If LeBron leaves and it's not working out, you can move on from then. Really, in a year, if there's a great head coach that becomes available and you want to go after him, JJ Redick's easier to get rid of than if you hire a Dan Hurley or you hire a big name coach. Then you have to stay with them for 3 or 4 years. But if you hire a JJ Redick and it doesn't work out, it's fine. And, even if you get to a case of a Mark Jackson, who was one of the coaches we named that went straight into coaching, was a broadcaster and went into coaching. Mark Jackson wasn't great. He was a good coach, but he got that team up to a level that then Steve Kerr, another first-time head coach, came in and made them into a dynasty.
Yeah, that's wow. Actually, I didn't think about that. You're right. They went back-to-back with first-time head coaches there. At least Steve Kerr had a little bit of front office experience for the most part. But, yeah, that's really interesting. And I agree with you on that about if, and not that JJ Redick going to do a good job, but even if you just want an upgrade, you can upgrade. And by the way, man, do you think he'll make it past 3 years? That's kind of the question, because no Lakers coach has made it past 3 years since Phil Jackson.
I mean, so
it's been what? It's Luke Walton.
Past 3, I think he can make it 3. I think he can make it 3.
Think he can make it 3 on the dot.
Well, because past 3,
it's all about LeBron, right? It's all about when LeBron.
I don't see LeBron being there in 3 years. So I think I don't see LeBron being there for more than 2 more years.
Okay.
So you say it depends of if LeBron goes 2 more years and then he gets 1 year after that, then it's just a crapshoot of do they hire a new coach because they feel they still have stuff there? Do they get Donovan Mitchell or Jimmy? Do they have another star that's in there and they feel like they should be competing? Or is it a rebuild? I mean, there were some years in there that were pretty slim for the Lakers after Kobe. So you can say, or there were some years that were slim with Kobe before he retired. So, I mean, you could say that he may last 4 years, but I think if he lasts 4, either he's doing a great job or that team's so bad they just don't really care they'll just not renew him at the end of it and they'll go get somebody else. But I mean, it's hard to tell. You never know with these guys. I could see him doing 4. I would say I put the odds slightly of him being able to last this whole contract. I put the odds of, as somebody that I think can do a good enough job, I think he can make it 4 years. It's a Lakers, so you never know. I find it hard to believe that he would butt heads necessarily with the star players. He's never been the star on a team. So some of these guys have an issue with it because they butt heads more because they were a star once. Surprisingly, one of the best records for a coach who didn't have any coaching experience, but he had executive experience, was Larry Bird. Larry Bird was actually 179 and 87 with the Pacers as a record. It's a pretty good record.
That's a really good record.
So, but he was somebody that you would expect to have more of an ego, but it worked on a Pacers team that wasn't as much of an issue. When you get to the Lakers, you're going to be trying to bring in stars. He's going to have to be able to do that, but he's gotten along with Luka. He got along in the short time with him. He got along with Blake Griffin. He got along with Chris Paul. He got along with all these other stars he's played with throughout his career. So it makes sense that he would be able to get along with the guys now. It's just trying to impose your will as a coach and trying to get guys to fall in line and be friendly.
Yeah, the hope is that the relationship that he does have with LeBron, because when LeBron sets the example of how he treats JJ Redick, everybody else will follow, right?
Yeah.
So if he's treating JJ Redick in front, I'm talking about in the locker room, obviously there's the facilities. If he's treating them a little too casually and like, hey, like they're boys, then I think that's kind of how the players will treat him because he's so young, right? He's 39 years old or something.